Hey guys, today we're going to talk about poke versus sustain. I want to do this one pretty quick because poke isn't terribly important, but it's still relevant. As a win condition, um, it helps, but usually you're not going to be seeing poke comps come out by any teams anymore. A lot of that has to do with the champions that are like poke champions. Um, they don't pack as much of a punch as they did before, and they're usually very vulnerable to any form of like diving, assassinating type things, and along with like tanks being really strong, they can just absorb and then regen a lot of the damage coming out from these champions. But first of all, what is poke? Poke is very similar to pressure, which is another win condition in that you're going to be getting free damage by doing it. It's usually long range, but the most important thing is the enemy can usually dodge poke. It's usually not close enough that a team fight's going to be happening when you're trying to like utilize poke, but if your poke lands, it creates pressure because the enemy team doesn't have as much HP after it lands. And that's really, going back to HP versus damage or damage versus effective HP, that's really the main objective of poke and, the game. So now let's just go look at what are the qualities of poke. There's a lot of different mechanics coming into here because it's just about skill shots, but how big is the missile? What's the missile speed? Is it easy to dodge? Is it hard to dodge? Is there a cast time to it, like the virus? You see there casting his Q. Like, are people gonna be ready to dodge it and then know when it's gonna be coming out? Also, starting location matters. Really, only Victor I think is like the only champion that has that sort of starting location thing, where it's not starting at the champion, the poke that's going to be coming out, it's starting someplace else. Also, damage is very important. It needs to be pretty high, like Varus and um, Jace are really high damage champions, along with a lot of the AP champions like Xerath or Victor and stuff like that. Um, that's kind of the quality. Also, penetration, like Varus, his Q penetrates, whereas Nidalee Spears, they don't penetrate. So you can get it to the back line, or you can get it kind of wherever you want. And range is the other quality. And they're all important, but again, the damage isn't where it used to be. So we can move on to counters. We got not a whole lot here for counters. Dodging. So it's important to note too, dodging isn't really something you can quantify in picks and bans. It's more of a player skill thing. You can make guesses based upon how easy is the poke to dodge, how small is the missile width, how fast is the poke actually flying. But those numbers are kind of hard to come by, to be honest. You'd have to dig into the game files probably to figure that out. I couldn't really find any resources that showed it to me. While sustain, if you get hit by the poke, if you have sustain and you have a way to like use the sustain, like lifesteal, it's not always practical to use that on a wave coming in because sometimes you have to clear it if you're under a turret, but you can use it to sustain back up, go in the jungle quickly, come back, do something like that. And the other thing is movement skills, which help you dodge. That we can talk about in picks and bans, but usually those are used for other things than trying to dodge skill shots, unless it's a very low cooldown movement skill. And that's pretty much there is to it. So, making it effective, if you're really going to go all out on poke, you want to have as many champions that have long range poke as possible, because of course if you have three things flying at you in different positions or different ways, it's going to be a lot harder to dodge three things than it would be to dodge one thing. So just a single poke champion you can kind of figure is not that effective, but having multiple ones, it's good. Also, pairing poke up with things like burst, which rely heavily upon how much HP the target has at the time you're trying to burst them, it's pretty useful. That's why you'll usually see a lot of mid laners having poke, so they can poke down a target and then throw their burst on it and kill them. So it's a pretty common synergy there. But again, the counter and the overall strength of poke isn't usually going to be enough to kill somebody. Unless you bring a lot of it, or you pair it with burst, and that's really what you got to do. So, let's just go into. We're only gonna have one example, and it's just game 1 of Origin versus Fnatic, where basically Xpeke on Varus kind of controls the entire game, with Soaz, adding in his poke burst of barrels to finish it up. So let's just go get that coming up. So, how to use poke to take an objective or win a game. Basically allows you to take objectives by zoning people off. Rainover gets poked out there, and again down on this bottom turret. We're gonna see Reckless get poked out by Xpeke here on Varus, just landing all of his poke. If Reckless has dodged it, maybe they would have saved the tower. Probably not, because there's 5 people. But this is, this is basically it. As you can see, it's also really boring, which is why Riot really tried to nerf it and get it out of the meta. And countering it is just kind of like countering it is just dodging. There's not much else you can say about it. It's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. So that's what poke is. If you have a comp like Origin has here, Gangplank, Varus, and Corki, all really strong poke champions, and they have like disengage and some damage control with Gragas and Braum. It really allows them to just focus entirely upon this. There are some other advantages of Gangplank becoming incredibly strong in this game, but basically, if you can't dodge as a poke, or if you're on fire, like Xpeke was just nailing everything this game, and it was a huge advantage. So this is really game dependent too, just like burst, but it's not as terribly strong as it used to be. A lot of the champions, of course, were changed and nerfed, but that's all we're really going into with poke and sustain. It's not too important, but you can't forget about it, and that's the biggest thing. You can't forget about any of these things, even if they're not as significant as they used to be. It's still relevant, like Origin did here. I mean, this was the first loss Fnatic had the entire summer split, so like, can't exactly say poke's completely not relevant when it helped with one. There's also some good lane swap play there, but poke really drove home the leads that Origin gained here. Fnatic couldn't come back from that. So that's it. Yeah, if you can hear it, he's just talking about weird poke standoffs, so it's really bad.